What's up, guys? Samma Jamma here. I'm just going to do a real quick Fibs extension of what's next for the SPY, where I'm picking this to be, and so on and so forth. So for me, when I'm figuring out which extension points I want to use, what's my primary purpose? My primary purpose is short-term trades. I'm not looking for trades. I'm not looking for levels for the next 5 years. So I'm not going to go back to like 2020 lows into the highs, back into the next low to find long-term extensions. I'm looking for extensions to play in a very tangible short-term time frame. So for me, that is where I clearly see trends started, so on and so forth. So for me, it's obviously this low here, the last major pivot low, is where I want to start my extension. Okay, so I'm going to draw from them lows in August to our all-time high, our previous all-time high, not including today, down to this low point. All right, and I'm going to make sure, I want to make sure this is perfect, so I'm going to adjust the numbers just to make sure it's perfect. Our previous all-time high was 673.95. I want these to be perfect because a little bit off can kind of mess them up. This low is 633.16. All right, and then this is low of 652.84. All right. There we go. So how do extensions work? What is this extension? So this extension is very, very simple. How does the extension get planned out? So it's a measured move type thing. So we know that our full move is from here, right, to here. That's the full move we want to find our extensions on. That's going to equal our 0 to our 1. See? So it's just a secondary measured move broken down into tangible form. All right? And then the second part of it is the following. So as we have this up, if we were to put a regular Fibs on this same level, okay, from this low to the high, I don't know how this ended up a little bit off, but the 25 is the 0.25. So it's showing the retraces. And then the 0 point is the 0.5. So it's showing the same levels. Okay? They match up. But they're just in a different scalable form. All right. So what does it tell us? Something must have got moved because now these numbers definitely look different. Well, I'm glad it got moved because it must have been. So we're hitting resistance at the 618 extension. Even without looking at a single thing, we're hitting resistance at exactly a 618. I'm echoing. Okay, you must be on two different. Was I echoing and it stopped? Okay, you must be on two platforms or something, Ro. You might be on WAP and Discord or something. Speaking of, I'm going to shut down the WAP. I'm recording this. All right. So as you can see, with us not pre-planning any of this and just checking it for what's next, look where we hit resistance today. Exactly that 618. So what's next? Well, it's simple. Our 0.5 is going to be that previous all-time high. We know that. So that's always going to be, on this one, that's how it happened to work out because it's the midpoint retrace of this full range. We pulled back exactly to the midpoint. Isn't that something, though? If we put this on this range. Because I totally missed that. I'm sure Arsenic had that out. So if we put it on this range, guys, of like the last major push from that 633 up to all-time highs, we bounced right off the 0.5 on the long term there. So we pulled back to the midpoint and now we're pushing. So in turn, that becomes the midpoint of, hold on, let me make sure I delete the right one. I want to delete this one. That's why this becomes this midpoint, because what happens is I want you guys to understand what you're looking at, not just how to use it. So what happens is this area here, all right, and it just happened to work out where it's the midpoint. So right here, from here to here, is equal to from here to here. Does it make sense, guys? Is this part computing for you all? Those are exactly equal. See that? So this showing as the midpoint is the midpoint of this entire range flipped upside down. So if we go back to what I originally said at the beginning, which was, it worked out that it was the 0.5. I mean, fibs are amazing. We literally bounced. This 0 is also the 0.5 of here to here. Of this low, the last major pivot, where we just chopped up the entire time to here. We literally bounced exactly off the 0.5. And I had no idea until after the fact looking at this. Like, talking about being able to predict trends, it's amazing. So this, again, reiterate, this trend here, this move, all we're doing with an extension is making a measured move from the pullback level here all the way through to expect a secondary measured move. And we have pushed half of that already. So we pushed half of it, the midpoint. We've gone through half of it. From here to here. That's the first half. So from here to here, so if I take this arrow and just slide it down to this low where we started, it's going to come right to that 0. See that? So does it make sense? I hope it makes sense. I'm showing it in a few different ways so you guys really understand it. So it's just a measured move. That's all this extension is a measured move, because measured moves, what happened before will happen again. You know, so are the times. So we have resistance right at the 618. So this candle here, this move that we measured, all right, if we flip it upside down and we put it from, if we slide that up from to here, the start point, we're right at the 618. We have moved 61.5%, 61.8% of this move we have already moved. And for a full 100% move, we would be at 693.63. Unfortunately, I do not love that we're already at the 618. We could shop in this area for a little bit here. It's the same kind of fibs rules. We're at the 618, so we would never take a long here. I would love to see it come back down, retest the 0.5, perhaps you know, jump around a little bit, and then at that break of the 0.5, possibly play it up to 618, and we can expect that trend to continue. The second part of that is the break of that 678.05 with hold, with confirmation, because remember, this is a daily trend. So if we get a full daily open and close above this trend line, I have the 0.75 on here just because of the algorithms in general. It could be a little chop area. I don't expect it to be a resistance area. But what does history tell us about the probabilities of fibs? If we can have, say, an opening candle, okay, a full weekly candle, open and close, so get a confirmation, all right? If we get that, why isn't, I hit enter 5 times. Okay, so if we could get a full weekly candle open and close above 678.05, 693.63, 78%, 72% probability of that happening. So bull scenario, weekly the 618 extension, not retrace. And that level is 678.05. 693.63. Does that make sense to you guys? Everybody's silent. Everybody's looking for trades, I'm guessing. Of course Arsenic's taking a trade while I'm trying to teach this. Of course, Mr. Fibs, who's begged me to do an extensions class, is trading instead of listening. Go figure. Anyway, so back to this. Do you guys understand where the levels come from? It's not about I understand how to draw the fibs. I want to make sure you guys understand where these levels come from. Did that make sense in general, how I drew those levels? Yeah, and I want the clean range. With an extension, it's a low to a high to a low. Or you could do it reverse if we're looking for loss of trend, but in an uptrend extension, we're going from a low point to a high to a low. We're tracing the breakout and then the pullback. So this worked out perfect because it was a 0.5 pullback. If it was a 618 pullback, let's say down to like right here. So we could actually measure what that 618 would have been. Let me, hold on. So if it was a 618 pullback instead, okay, so we're right here. Let me just pop a line there. Oh, where's my, there it is. I'm like, where is my, all right, let me slide this up. Okay, so if we, let me delete this. So if we were to actually pull back to the 618 instead, the 0.5 wouldn't have been almost exactly at those all-time highs. The reason the 0.5 ended up being right at those all-time highs is because our pullback was a perfect 0.5 pullback, okay? But if we went back to the 618, see how the 618 would have been where we hit resistance. So whatever the pullback is, it's showing on the number here. We don't even have to technically measure the pullback, because it's going to show right on here. If we pulled back to here, we pulled back to approximately 80%. You know, but if we would have only pulled back to here, it's 25%. It's measuring the pullback. That's what the extension's doing, and plotting the continuation. And we know the fibs levels we use are the 0.5618. I do add the 0.75 on an extension. All right, so here's the full extension. Again, it's from the move from there to there. That's the next move up. You could go back and back test this on all these pullback and pushes, where every time there was like a pivot. So a good range would be obviously here, down in here, up to, I mean, we didn't even have a pullback in here you can measure because it was all continuation. We didn't get a pullback past a 0.25. So my rule of thumb for extensions is it has to be a pullback past 25%. So really on this, I can't even, it would be for long term, okay? Let me fix this. Hold on, I would have done, all right. Why is this overlapping? I don't know. Okay, but anyway, for long term, let me delete that. I'll add it in a minute. But for the long term, I would have done, we're really looking long term, we would have done this. And I would have had it already plotted out. We'd be in it right now, but my fibs extension would have been the 2020 lows. These are long, so for a long-term extension, I'm doing 2020 lows to the highs in 2021, right here, to these lows. That's one way you can put it. However, we can also make a case for that 2020 low to this high, okay, to that low, like this. There's two different, like, extensions aren't a science unless it's a very clear like up, down, up. But for short term, there we go. That's what we're looking at. And we're right at that 618. I probably accidentally moved this. Oh, these dogs are going to make me crazy. All right, so back to the daily. Did this get shifted? It sure did. I don't know why Weeble, it'll shift sometimes. I don't understand it. It like shifts around. All right. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, of course you can use it. You can add, once we get like a 0.5 pullback, you can use an extension. The reason I don't pull up an extension and use it is because we already know kind of what it is. I already know what the extensions are because like when we were talking about the math of it, how we pulled back exactly at 0.5 is why we hit this 0.5. It's already telling it. You know what I mean? So like if I'm using it short term, let's go on like a minute candle for today. So if I'm using a short term, let me delete it first. So it's not all over. We don't have, and I'll just re-add it. So does everybody, before I get into that, does everybody understand kind of what we're looking at here? Let me finish the bear scenario and then I'll do that little, I don't want to get distracted and forget. So I'll show you that first, next, okay? So that's our bull scenario to the full retrace. All right. So our bear scenario for me in this situation is going to be confirmed rejection of the 673. Previous all-time highs. And I expect to the 0.25 extension. Sorry, I keep looking at my dogs. They're frapping out, running, everything. So, and what's that price? Like 663-ish. I got a new mechanical keyboard. Mine broke. And it has no number pad on the side. And I'm used to doing all my numbers on the side like an adding machine. And it fucks me up. I got to get one with the numbers on the side. I didn't realize I ordered one without. So that's our bear scenario. What, not have a number tab on the side? It's horrible. I have to look at the keyboard when I'm doing numbers and percentages and all that because of it. It's fucking horrible. Well, working at like Subway with like the money and being a regional manager for so long, I used the 9-key adding machine every day so I could like fly through it without looking. Like I need to get it back. I'm ordering it today. I'm being cheap. All right, so there's our bull and bear levels here. All right, so let's see how that plays out in the future, but that's how you draw an extension. And if you're doing it on a short term, i.e. day trading, let me just delete this so it's clean. Huh? Oh, you pissed me off. I'm not talking to you. All the times you beg me to do an extension class and you're taking fucking trades while I'm doing it. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. Okay, so on, all right, so if we put an extension, let's say, let's just show it here. So like the breakout from CPI, okay? So we could clearly see that we kind of bounced off that 0.5 and the 0.618. So with extensions, all the extensions is if I take a trend line. This is why I don't use them intraday, and I could kind of, because if I take that line, okay, and I add it up here to that high, and I flip this to that, and then I add the extensions here from our low to our high to our low, they overlap. Okay, they're not drawn perfect, but for the most part, they show the same exact thing in reverse. So what I mean by that is we pulled back 0.618. So I automatically know, hold on, let me move this so we could see both sets of numbers. There we go. All right. So I automatically know that if we pulled back 0.618, it means we've got, we pulled back 61.8%. So I know that that's what's going to show from here to here. All right. So see how that shows the 618 on the extension? Because that was the 618 on the original breakout. So if I put this back to originally where it was, hold on, which one's which? It's hard to tell which one's which. Okay, there we go. So if I put the actual Fibs retrace where it was from the high to the low, or from the low to the high, it's already showing me this is the 618, okay, because that's where we bounced. So past that, I know that this is what we're looking for, is that move from that 618 down to the full retrace is going to be the 1 up here. So I don't have to pull an extension up to see that, but we know that if we break, so let's flip that. If we pull back to the 618, all right, and then we break highs, we know our next target, okay, our probability of 72% means our next target is going to be the fill out of that move. What does that mean? That means the extra move for the full retrace, meaning this to this, like we already talked about. This to this is the same thing. There's so many different ways to teach it. So this to this, the full move, is the same thing as the bottom here, where we bounced, to the 1. Measured moves, measured moves. So I know all I have to do is take whatever the pullback was, whether it was a 0.5, 0.618. All I have to do is measure the full move, put it at the bottom, okay, and find the top. And if we break the high of our Fibs range, if we break out of that Fibs range, whatever the additional space was, whether it was the 0.5, the 618, that would be our next realistic target level. Okay? Not necessarily in the 0.25. We can't expect like a 75% move, but it happens quite often. And that is why a lot of times, and I think Arsenic has mentioned this, when we bounce off the 0.25, we seem to rip through that high a day and push more to a new high than when we bounce off the 0.5 or 0.618. Yeah, because that's the Fibs extensions. And I wasn't charged to do these classes, honest to God, because the extensions, like the extra little hints of extension prices, this and that, everything from here. Like, is that an aha moment for any of you guys? Like, you don't need to pull out the extension to know the extensions. You can literally delete this and you can you can measure the full move, and then wherever the pullback is, right there, we put that same measured move, the same exact measured move. We're going to line it up here, and we know that's our target. If we break high a day, this is our next target range. That's why I don't pull them up, because I've done them so often. I can do it without having to pull up the extension and do the extension on top of the fibs, because it's just this 1 to 0 in reverse. But it's the 0 at the bottom. You're flipping it. The 0's at the bottom here. All right, and then here's your 1. See how the 618's right at the high? We're flipping it. Does it make sense? Because I'm trying to explain it a few different ways, but I don't know if that's making it worse. We pull back 618. So when we bounce, it does? Okay. Well, the extensions, like if I add them onto this, if I go into my... I'll show you. I think I have a template with them on it. Where's default? Trying to figure out. One that has them. I don't want to have to type them all out. I guess I'll type them all out. Let me go to the one, extended one. All right, and let me check the negative 618, the negative 0.5. I need a negative 0.25 and a negative 1. Well, he's asking the difference between adding extensions onto the retrace and then the extension. It's reversed. I'm going to show you. All right, do I have them all on here now? What am I missing? 0, and I need the negative 0.25. I thought I added that. I already told them all that. I got it, Arsenic. Thank you, though. I'm just kidding. And just, he had a question about it. I already went up through all that. If you were listening instead of doing a trade, you would know. I already showed them how it's all the same if you flip it. Okay, so here's our extensions. We've got the 0, of course, the 0.25, the 0.5, 618. All right, so let's put our extension onto that. Where's the high? Oh, yeah, right here. All right, here we go. Okay. Let me slide this out so the numbers aren't on top of each other. Where's the other numbers? Where the hell are these numbers? Oh, they're over there. Shit. Hold on. Let me switch these. I don't know why those numbers are way over there. Sorry, guys. I only use my 1 fibs and that's it. All right. Gotta make sure they're lined up there. Okay. It's really hard to see, so I'm going to try to... All right, so the one with the shading in the background is the Fibs retracement. This without the shading is the extension. All right. So as we could see here, we know, and I'm going to make some lines where the range is because it's hard to see with everything on the screen. All right. So let me just add some lines to this that are super thick so you guys... Oh, no, I don't want to move it again. I hate using extensions. Full disclosure. I didn't lock it, and I fucking moved it. Let me lock that shit. There we go. Let me lock this shit. All right. Let me add some lines. So you could see the range. So here it is. And then here it is. All right, so that's our range. I just want to make sure it's a super clear pictures for you guys. So we already know this 618. Did this get moved? I gotta delete this line. Hold on a second here. All right, low to high. There we go. To low. And now let's slide it out. Something got moved there. There we go. Okay. So the difference is pretty much this, all right? If you've got both on your 0 line, our 1 and our 0 of our Fibs retrace, we know what that is. We know that we're starting here and we're retracing up, and then 0 means 0 point. That's like the full retrace because it's a retracement. The reason it's a 1 at the start of the retrace and a 0 at the end is because we're measuring the pullback. This is just the guide to measure the pullback. So if it's had 0 pullback, it's going to be the 0 line. When it's had 25% pullback, it's going to be the 0.25 line. When it's had 618 pullback, it's going to be the 618 line. We know that, okay? So we know we pretty much bounced off the 618. It's a little off, but very, very close. So that makes the 0 line, okay, where we started, which is also the 618. This line's telling us how much we moved, okay? On an extension, the high point is telling us how much the move back was. And we want to get to the full retrace again, which is here. That's our probability target, okay? The extensions in general, the retrace is just this flipped. It's just continuing on the pattern. So the problem using a retrace for your extensions is it's not doing it algorithmically. All it's doing is saying like, okay, this was the move. This is the same exact zone on top of it. So it's not measuring it right. It's not measuring it from where we're starting, which is the bounce here up. It's measuring it as a full Fibs scale on top of the Fibs we're already using. That's why you'll never see extensions on my Fibs retrace, because it's starting a whole new Fibs right here. Why the fuck do I want a whole new Fibs right there? I don't want that. That's why you don't see extensions on my retrace. We're not retracing anymore. It has nothing to do. One has nothing to do with the other, because this is a whole new level. We're measuring, this is the Fibs retrace. This scale is used to measure how much we retrace. Why the hell are we using a retrace scale to get extensions? I've used them before. You can use them in like a measured move type way of, okay, so this move right here, if we got a full move, again, we'd be all the way up there, as you could see with the -1. But we're not looking for a full double measured move. We're looking for the measured move off where we pulled back to. So if you were to only use retrace to try to figure out extended targets, you're going to start where you pulled back to, okay? And then you're going to, oh, I've got it locked. Hold on. All right. So that's our, so then you're going to draw the retrace on that. Oh my God. Hold on. Let me switch it to mine. No. I am not using this shit. Let me switch to mine. There we go. Okay. So we would want to do our move from where we started to where we go. And we want it with our 0 point to be the full retrace. That's how you can mimic the extended. You can't mimic the extended if you start here with the 0 and then have the 1 up here, because then we're not getting extended targets. But if you start here with the 1 and measure up, because we're trying to measure where the next one would be, we're anticipating the next move and then build a retrace off of that. So once you bounce, if you're looking for extended targets, you either pull up the retrace or you draw it with the opposite. So the 1's going to be at the bottom, the 0's going to be here, to try to figure out where we'll end up. Okay, does that make sense, guys? So if we do that, because if we're just throwing extensions on a retrace, that is just little segmented compartments that equal how much the 0.25 was, the 0.5, the 0.68, the 0.1. But it's not scalable because it's not giving us extensions. It's just mimicking what exactly happened, where we want the measured move of, okay, we moved this far this time. Once we bounce, that should be our next move. So if I was to put the extension on here, like we've been doing, now they line up. You see that? Now they line up. The 0.5 is the 0.5 here. The 0.618 was that full pullback. And these line up. I didn't draw it perfect, but this should be this. Okay? The only thing that's going to be flipped if you do that is the 618. Because, of course, it's a half is a half, but a 618 doesn't equal a 618 when you split it in half. So, but the 0.5 and the full move line up when you do that. I don't know if any of this makes sense, and I can do much more classes about it. But for now, for people new, the reason I don't use it is because all I do is this. What was the measured move? Okay, cool. Here's the next move. And if I draw fibs on it, I know where it's going to be. You know, whatever the pullback was, I know that's going to be the 0 point. So that's the 618. If the pullback was a 0.5, this is going to be the 0.5, which means if the pullback was only 0.5 instead of 0.618, all right, what does math tell us on that? It tells us that when we break, we're going to hit another resistance point pretty quick. That's why the 618 is the golden mean, the best fibs. People that play the 0.5, like Arsenic says, I don't like the 618, I like the 0.5. But for a continuation trade, you want the 618. Because once you hit because if we only hit the 0.5, like right here, we're immediately going to have another target level just above our heads at that 0.618, because we know that's an important level on the extension once we break higher highs. But if we pull back to the 618, we've already pulled back to the 618. Once we break that, that is the 618 extension. And now we get that big move up to the 1 with the higher probability. Because we know that 618, if we only pull back to the 0.5, is going to give us problems right away. But if we pull back to 618, that's what makes the 618 so beautiful and important. Because if we pull back to 618, when we break high a day, that's the 618 extension, and then we're really ripping. I hope that makes sense as well. It's not necessarily stacking them. It's just like the only reason this even matters, the extension matters in general, is if you're looking for targets, like say you're in a SPY day trade, okay, and we retrace at 0.6, you buy it, and you're still in contracts as it's breaking high a day. Where am I going to look for levels next as far as Fibs extension? Where's the next algorithmic levels? Sure, we're going to look at our EMAs, whatever you guys use, your EMAs, pre-market high, market open, all these things. Yes, we're using all those. But in a pure Fibs thing, in a pure Fibs rhetoric, in using purely Fibs and the quantitative values behind it, pulling back to the 618 is much better for continuation past that high or reverse past that low on sell-off, then pulling back to the 0.5. Because when we pull back only to the 0.5, like I showed you guys here, okay, if we only pull back to the 0.5, so it goes right here, if this was where our pullback was right here, instead of a little deeper, our pullback stopped right here, okay? And that's our 0.5. It shows the pullback. Our extension shows the pullback right there. We have that immediate 618 just above our heads on the extension. But if we get that little bit extra to the 618, once we break that high, then it's off to races. Ignore the 0.75. I just have that on there for doing standard deviations. I use a Fibs scale sometimes for it. So you could ignore this. This shouldn't even, like, yes, we can hit a little bit of chop there, but it's not. So see the difference there? 618 pullback. Woohoo! We got a nice next target way up there. 0.5 pullback. Well, shit. We've got a one target immediately just above our heads. Then we might have some fun. Yes, absolutely. No problem. So I'm going to end the recording so I can post this on. I'm still going to talk with you guys, but I'm going to end recording of this. I don't even know if I should post it on YouTube. This should be for the Discord only. Maybe I'll post it private.